Jenny Holzer once said, "Abuse of power comes as no surprise." Keep this in mind as we discuss today India's recent crackdown on minority Muslims and what does it mean for the social unrest within India. My name is Dr. David Oualaalou.
And my name is Dr. Ross Stewart.
And you are watching Geopolitics in Conflict.
As is our custom, we would like to thank you for watching and thank you for subscribing. We are inching closer and closer and closer to our 70 million subscriptions.
Exactly, Ross. We move in there. But on a serious note, we want to thank our supporters. We do have supporters that they really helping the channel to move forward. So we want to thank our subscribers for that. And also we want to thank our Patreon members for the continued support. And also wanted to let you know about our new membership, which we want you guys to check it out because we do offer live presentations, Q&As, and a newsletter. And for only $11 a month, you get so much information and in-depth that we couldn't share elsewhere. So we look forward to having you join our membership. So back to our topic.
Recently, India supported violence against a minority Muslim population and even tolerated murder. What's your take on this?
Well, indeed, Russ, that's been some really back and forth conversation regarding the role of the government in New Delhi, whether they sanctioned those kind of actions by the law enforcement in targeting the minority Muslims. As a matter of fact, some of them, they have kicked them out of the villages and so forth in Assam region or Assam city. And their argument was that they are building, they didn't have permit to build whatever. But even with that, you don't go that far as start killing people.
And tolerating violence by government authorities.
Well, yeah, because they got some government officers who were dressed in civilians stamping on the dead body of a Muslim individual.
And that video is available on YouTube, and I mean, it's really just dreadful to watch.
Because it's not right.
It's just wrong in every way.
And I was shocked to see that myself.
Especially when India purports itself to be a liberal democracy.
Well, I don't see where democracy in all this. I mean, this issue, we all know how Indian society is structured. Muslims have always been a minority in a Hindu society, which is fine. They've coexisted way back with no issues whatsoever. So I'll have to say, and I'm going to say it, I'm not going to shy away from it, until the arrival of Prime Minister Modi, who is a nationalist, then you start to see some changes towards the minorities, especially the Muslims over there. I mean, look no further than, of course, what's taking place in Kashmir, which is a separate conversation altogether. But this one, for them to be attacking Muslim minorities and sanctions by the government, that's become questionable as far as what type of democracy you are claiming.
And to focus on something like that, when the issues that India is facing are so huge. I mean, the border conflict with China, the aching poverty, the amazing diversity of the population. I mean, and to focus on this seemed like a terribly wrong thing to do and a wrong priority.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Russ. The wrong priority. I mean, rather than focusing on lifting everybody or majority from poverty, because it still surprised me, I mean, nothing against India here. I have Indian friends. I have friends who are from India.
Yeah.
Wonderful people. Very smart, very talented.
The ones that we get to see are very smart.
Exactly. And I always wonder, how come a country like India that has this massive human capitals not taking advantage of it? And that's always surprised me. And yet the government is focusing priorities on things that have no reward whatsoever for the whole country.
You know, in the region, what we see is a major country who says, we're here to bring people up out of poverty into moderate prosperity. You never hear a word of that as policy coming out of India.
No, because it choose not to. I mean, and this brings me, your illustration here brings me to address the issue of 5G, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Why India turned 5G from China, which could really revolutionize technology within India. You know, because India also is going to run to the issue of microchips.
Oh,
They
yeah.
won't be able to produce all that. India also is going to run to the issues of infrastructure. They don't have the infrastructure for it. And India now being pulled into the Quad,
Oh.
that's another matter altogether. Why will India be spending its resources on being with the Quad than focusing on the economy? And this is what some analysts have noticed during the last meeting face to face between President Biden, Narendra Modi, and Morrison of Australia, and the Prime Minister of Japan. They noticed that India is kind of dancing around. They didn't want to fully state their commitment to the Quad. And to me personally, and this is my personal opinion, if I am to analyze this, is that India is playing it safe. I don't want to really aggravate my biggest economy, my neighbor, China.
Who they do billions and billions of trade with every year.
Exactly. So if I am to think as to why India is thinking is they don't want to do that, and second, they want to play both sides. In other words, they are seeing that, like for example, with this emergence of the new alliance of AUKUS,
Yeah.
they are seeing the US, France, and Australia as countries that India can do deals with. So that's why they are not saying anything about the AUKUS thing. So, and for the Quad, they are staying sort of mute about where they stand on that. Unlike South Korea, which you remember
Oh,
when
yeah.
we did the video on it. They
South-
flat out.
We're not going to be involved with that. China happens to be our biggest trade partner, and by the way, we're next door to them.
Exactly, and they thought, Moon Jae-in thought in terms of the economic prosperity of South Korea.
Oh, you mean he put his own country first?
Oh,
And
yeah,
his own-
shocking.
His own people first?
Shocking, huh?
Oh, it's almost unbelievable.
Exactly, and this is where this now all of a sudden you get these social tensions within India in this part of the country in Assam that just didn't make any sense. It's almost like the wrong time for something like this because those social ethnic, we all know, social sort of issues between minorities where it can lead to. Those social tensions could lead to some issues that Indian government is not ready to handle.
Well, what you know is the Pakistani government is watching this very carefully and seeing their brother Muslims being dislocated, being harmed tragically, and sometimes being killed.
Exactly. That's a good point, Ross, because you don't hear anything from the Muslim world as far as where is the brotherhood. You always hear about the Muslim brotherhood and they're going to think of their brothers and sisters and all that, which is nothing but a lip service. We all know the reality about some Muslim countries. They don't care about what happened to other Muslims, but also because some leaders in those Muslim countries, they just want to play it safe because they will be nervous to see demonstrations within their own streets. We all can, that almost reminds me of how, for example, in certain Arab countries, if they want to divert the attention of the population from how bad the economy is, they will let them demonstrate about the Palestinian cause or about some crime committed in some La La Land, some Muslims there. Interesting enough, you didn't hear a thing about this, about Muslims in India, that the Muslim countries didn't say anything. But beside all this, the government, the Indian government in this case, shouldn't be sanctioning that, allowing law enforcement to do whatever. Because if you are to say we are a democracy, everybody has to be held accountable.
Yeah. Well, when the video of that government official hit the airwaves, they immediately arrested him, but they didn't have anything to do with it ahead of that time, even though they knew about it. And then the question is the person really in jail? Is the person really going to receive any justice?
Yeah, and that's remained to be seen. Knowing how society, how the government in India operates, they became And I used to really follow what's going on in India way back when Manmohan Singh was the head of the government, when Vajpayee was the head of the government, and Vajpayee was a poet, by the way, just FYI. You know, they were very. India was moving into the right direction. With the arrival of Narendra Modi, and again, no offense to, I'm not pointing fingers at Modi here, whatever. It's just the policies he embarked on as a nationalist, it's kind of taking India in the wrong direction. And now you add to the equation the emergence of AUKUS, the alliance, and the Quad. What's next for India? That's what's going to become problematic.
Well, as I mentioned to you once before, I was talking with a retired general from the Indian Army, and the discussion was about the relationship with China. And he said, oh yeah, they're land hungry. They're really trying to they're trying to take over the land of all the countries around them. They're going, I don't think that that's true. I didn't say it to him because it would be confrontational and rude.
Yeah.
But if that's the prevailing thought, just because there's some minor boundary disputes in the northern Himalayas,
yes,
doesn't mean that China's trying to overrun India.
Exactly, and it won't, because China also understands India is not a small country, and let alone it's a nuclear power. You're gonna have to think twice about engaging in a military, which I do not see that happening. Even though the last tensions between the two when they amassed the troops on the border, but it was just posturing, no more, no less. I mean, we all know if something like that erupts between those two countries, it's over for everybody.
Yeah.
So I just don't see that happening. But the idea of India is going to be, I always wonder, where is the priorities for India? Why aren't they moving the majority of society, lifting them out of poverty?
It's not today, it's not a mystery as to how that can happen. We now have a major country who set it as a priority and managed to do it.
Exactly. So there is precedent for it. So,
there absolutely is precedent in terms of hundreds of millions of people being raised up out of dirt poor poverty.
Yeah. Well, I think India shuts itself in the foot when they shut down the market for 5G, because I believe, and this is my opinion, if they would have allowed that would have opened up the path for more economic opportunities for India when it comes down to dealing with China, economically speaking. So, and I don't think so. They really the bottom line to it, and the truth about it is that they yielded to the U.S. pressure. Simple as it is, there is no other way around it. So it's like, for India, it's always been pressured by the U.S. to do things. I recall one particular incident way back with Iran, when India was supposed to buy oil from Iran.
Oh, yeah.
And guess what the U.S. did? They told India, no, don't buy oil.
And India complied.
They complied.
And they cut that deal.
Exactly.
Nope, we're not doing it.
Yeah, and that tells you right there where the priorities are. So if India couldn't take a stand on its own, then issues like this, targeting a minority Muslims, when they can't defeat themselves because they are a minority. They are very small.
And they're poor anyway.
Yeah.
It's like it's a small village.
Yeah. And that's why it becomes the question, will India ever move forward? And some are saying no, you just don't see that till they have a different government altogether, because the current one is certainly not living up to the standards. And let alone when they start announcing, well, we are a democracy here, democracy that. Well, how can you be a democracy here or democracy there and you are targeting your minority?
They have so many issues to overcome. The multitude of languages. I mean, multitude.
Exactly.
256 major, and every village has its own dialect. They have a staggering bureaucracy that stands directly in the way of fostering new businesses. And then they have animosity towards so many neighbors.
Yeah. And yet, India has the potentials. Its potentials are in its human capitals. I mean, look no further than here in the United States. Who do we have in the tech sector? I mean, let's face it.
Indians, and more Indians.
Yeah.
They're heading companies, they're heading tech
Exactly.
organizations. I think it was, I can't remember which one it was either YouTube or Facebook, or one of those, that if it wasn't for the Indian engineers who came from India here, we couldn't have those things.
I do remember that Microsoft was dealing with that. Big time.
Microsoft, okay.
And Microsoft depends greatly on the brains from India. So, and that's what I always wondered. You know, it's kind of, here's this country that has massive wealth, human capital wealth.
Well, yes.
That they can they do have good universities there.
Oh, they have fabulous
smart people.
universities there.
One of my math professor, believe it or not, I still remember his name. His name is Kitapa, Dr. Kitapa. He was the only one who has solved one mathematical equation that nobody has solved for the last 100 years. You know,
And he's from India.
That's how, yeah, wonderful gentleman, scientist, mathematician, and he lives here in the U.S. And you know, it just to me was an eye opener that wow, there's this country that has this human capital wealth, but they're not taking advantage of it because the government of India, focusing on priorities that have nothing to do with improving.
With the well-being of their own people.
Exactly. And that's what I didn't quite understand. Why this? Why behave that way? Why encourage your law enforcement to violate the law and break the law and then just do whatever? Like there is no laws in this country. It's a lot of land.
Yeah.
And yet you call yourself a democracy. Because in a democracy, you're supposed to be transparent. You're supposed to obey the law and respect the privacy and the freedom of others.
Especially the freedom of minorities.
Exactly. Exactly.
What would you say the takeaway is for what we've talked about today?
Well, the idea was that if India doesn't handle this kind of stuff properly, that's going to spill into much bigger problems. You know, remind you, just to remind our viewers, India is not that far from Pakistan, is not that far from Afghanistan. You know, and when you start targeting Muslims, you know, sometimes you never know where things could come from. That's usually how it works. You know, India has to be very careful as to. Second thing, you do not want to act like this because that reflects on your image on a global stage. Because now everybody who saw those videos, what they're going to be thinking about?
They're aghast at seeing it to begin with.
Yeah.
Then when they found out that the government person was there doing it,
yeah.
India's reputation just took a slap in the face.
Yeah. I mean, they already been hit hard a couple of years ago when they had that gang rape case.
Oh, my
on
goodness.
the bus for some you know, female, whatever. I mean, it was just heartbreaking to hear about something like that. It's almost like, you know, can nobody control what people do in the sense of obeying the law and all that? So to me, this issue of targeting minority Muslims could spill into something much bigger if they don't watch out. And second, if you want to, as you claim yourself to be an emerging economy and a democracy, then live up to its standards. That's the bottom line.
Well, if they're an emerging economy, they're traveling at a snail's pace.
Exactly.
When they could be on a fast track because of the talent and human resource that they have.
And that's their choice they made.
We'd like to thank you for viewing. We'd like to thank you for subscribing. And as always,
Stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.